Harry arrived at the Royal Courts of Justice on Tuesday morning, and before anyone could even open a notebook or sharpen a pencil in a newsroom, the story had already contradicted the narrative that certain tabloids have been trying and failing to sell for years. Just after 10 a.m., the Duke of Sussex stepped out, tension in the air, cameras clicking like cicadas in summer, and yet there it was, a brief human smile, not a performance smile, not a PR grin, just a moment of warmth that cut clean through the manufactured drama. And immediately the supporters lining the pavement made themselves heard, as if on cue from reality itself. "Harry, I love you!" someone shouted. "Good luck, Prince," called another. These weren't paid extras. These weren't bots. These were real people, standing in real weather, reacting in real time. Already the idea that nobody supports Harry collapsed under the weight of basic observation. The irony, of course, is that the same media outlets that insist Prince Harry is irrelevant somehow manage to report on his every movement with the urgency of a national emergency. If irrelevance paid this well, everyone would want a slice of it. As Harry walked into the Royal Courts of Justice, the crowd response told a story far more honest than any headline hastily typed behind a desk. This wasn't about celebrity worship. It was about solidarity. People weren't cheering a royal title, they were cheering a man who has chosen repeatedly to confront systems that benefit from silence and submission. Now, let's clear up one of the most deliberately misunderstood points of the day. Prince Harry was not there to take the witness stand. He wasn't delivering testimony, he wasn't cross-examined, and he wasn't performing for the cameras. He returned to court to listen as his legal team continued to outline the case. Imagine that a man accused of wanting attention quietly sitting and listening while lawyers do the talking. It's almost as if the caricature doesn't match the reality. His barrister, David Sherborne, resumed opening arguments, and from the moment he began, it became painfully clear why certain tabloids would rather talk about Harry's facial expressions than the substance of what was being said. Sherborne addressed the court with a focus that was sharp, controlled, and devastatingly straightforward. He argued that few figures generated more fascination for the tabloid press than the younger son of the king. Not because Harry was seeking attention, but because attention was forced upon him. According to the claim, stories about Harry's private life were treated not as journalism, not as matters of public interest, but as commercial gold. That phrase alone should echo uncomfortably in any newsroom still pretending this case is about hurt feelings rather than profit. Commercial gold. That's not the language of reporting. That's the language of extraction. And like all extractive industries, the human cost is treated as collateral damage. When Sherborne described Harry as being chased like a cash cow, it wasn't hyperbole, it was an unflattering mirror. A cash cow is valuable not because it is respected, but because it can be milked endlessly. And that, according to the case, is exactly how the tabloids treated Harry's private life. Every detail, every relationship, every movement became something to monetize. The more invasive the story, the better it sold. The more intrusive the method, the higher the reward. Ethics, it seems, were optional extras nice to mention in editorials, inconvenient to practice in reality. What makes this all the more disturbing is the alleged disregard for security risks. Sherborne warned the court that the obsession went far beyond headlines, claiming that Harry's movements were closely monitored. Not speculated about, not guessed, monitored. Anyone with even a passing understanding of security knows how dangerous that can be, particularly for someone whose life has already been shaped by very real, very public tragedy. Yet the claim suggests that these risks were ignored, brushed aside in favour of circulation figures and online clicks. When profit is the goal, caution becomes an obstacle. And here is where the tone of certain media coverage becomes almost farcical. Harry raises concerns about safety, and he's labelled paranoid. He challenges intrusive behaviour, and he's accused of being thin-skinned. But when the court hears allegations that his movements were tracked because it sold papers, suddenly the conversation shifts. Suddenly it's about press freedom. Because nothing says freedom like refusing to examine how power is used without accountability. It's also crucial to understand that Prince Harry is not standing alone in this courtroom battle. No matter how hard some commentators try to frame him as a lone, disgruntled figure tilting at windmills. He is one of 7 high-profile claimants in this case, joined by people whose credibility and life experiences make it increasingly difficult to dismiss the claims as celebrity tantrums. Among them are Elton John and David Furnish, individuals who have spent decades navigating public life and media scrutiny. Also included are Doreen Lawrence, a woman whose pursuit of justice has reshaped conversations about accountability in Britain, as well as Sadie Frost, Elizabeth Hurley, and former MP Simon Hughes. This diversity of claimants matters. These are not people from the same background, the same industry, or the same political persuasion. What unites them is not privilege, but experience of media practices that, according to the claims, cross lines that should never have been blurred, let alone erased. When such a broad group raises the same concerns, the question shifts from why are they complaining to why has this been allowed to continue? For Prince Harry, this case is not an isolated event. It is part of a longer journey that began when he realised that the systems he was born into could not, or would not, protect him from the excesses of a media machine that saw him less as a human being and more as a renewable resource. Being the younger son of King Charles III did not shield him. In many ways, it made him more vulnerable. He was close enough to power to be endlessly fascinating, yet distant enough to be considered expendable. The humour in all of this, and sometimes laughter is the only sane response, lies in the contradiction at the heart of the criticism directed at Harry. He is accused of hating the media, yet his critics can't stop talking about him. He is accused of wanting privacy, as if privacy were an unreasonable desire, particularly for someone whose life has been dissected since childhood. He is told to move on, while being followed, analysed and editorialised about in perpetuity. It's like telling someone to stop swimming while actively pushing them back into the water. That brief smile Harry offered as he entered the court spoke volumes. It wasn't defiance for the cameras, nor was it submission. It was resolve. The kind that comes from knowing the road ahead will be uncomfortable, but necessary. The cheers from supporters weren't about monarchy or titles. They were about courage. Because it takes courage to challenge institutions that are used to operating without meaningful scrutiny. It takes courage to stand up when the cost is misrepresentation, mockery, and relentless criticism. As this case unfolds, the real question is not whether Prince Harry can withstand the pressure. He has already demonstrated that he can. The question is whether the media industry is prepared to examine itself honestly. Accountability feels like an attack only when one has grown accustomed to impunity. If this case forces uncomfortable conversations about how stories are obtained, about where ethical boundaries lie, and about whether profit can ever justify intrusion, then it will have achieved something far greater than personal vindication. So, as viewers, as readers, and as participants in the media ecosystem, We are left with a choice. We can accept simplified narratives that paint complex human beings as caricatures, or we can engage critically with the facts as they are presented. Prince Harry's walk into the Royal Courts of Justice was not the act of a man seeking sympathy. It was the step of someone insisting that power, whether royal or media, must answer to principle. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, perhaps that discomfort is long overdue.